Hello, welcome to the
Oh,
Geekly. My name is Jules.
I'm Lex.
Today we're talking about Vagrant Queen, Picard, and the first three episodes of Life according to Jeff Goldblum.
Vagrant Queen, which was my idea. I don't exactly regret it. It's a new show on the Sci-Fi Channel based off of a series of graphic novels. Takes place kind of in a future, possibly, but largely in a galaxy that is not ours. That's kind of the specified area. So maybe it's the future, maybe it's not. I think the thing is that it is aimed at a much younger audience. Teenager, adolescents would really get a kick out of this. It's kind of on that level in terms of sophistication and emotional depth.
There is a logic to that because I think they're hoping that these people don't remember a lot of sci-fi that's come before it. When I was watching this, I don't know if you are a fan of Sunny in Philadelphia, but there's this persona that Frank Reynolds has got called Ongo Goldblum, and he's this art critic, and he walks into this art gallery in this particular episode, and he goes, derivative, 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 derivative to all the arts. And as I was watching this, all I was thinking was derivative, derivative. Everything was ripped from somewhere else. And so I think if you could be right there, I think that these people are probably aiming it at maybe people who haven't seen the original Star Wars trilogy, people that don't know certain sci-fi or certain narrative tropes. A couple of examples, obviously it takes a definite lead from, Guardians of the Galaxy. It comes across as a bit of a low-rent Guardians of the Galaxy. The opening scene where she finds the MacGuffin and she has that very similar confrontation to Star-Lord where he meets the Ravagers, and in this they're obviously called Scavengers. A lot of Star Wars references. She falls down the waste disposal. They incapacitate this show's equivalent of stormtroopers and wear their uniforms, and the guy actually says, I swear I've seen this in a movie. And at that point I wanted to kind of stab a fondue fork into my thigh. The bad guy, when he entered and he looked like Darth Vader walking through the dry ice. Even, the core principal character, she's a princess fleeing from her birthright because she should be becoming a queen. But, due to her parents being murdered in front of her, this queen has had to flee. Now she has no desire to go back, and she's kind of turning her nose up at her birthright. And that made me think of Starfire recently from Titans. And you might kind of say, well, Starfire, I think, just chose to flee. I can't remember if she was driven out or not. Well, then it's kind of similar, I guess, to The Lion King, and maybe you're thinking, well, that's an animated lion. Fair enough. Well, it's maybe similar to The Witcher, the little girl in the blue dress who had, she was the princess of somewhere and she had to flee. And I just think if you take that all away, I just don't really know what's left. And so I don't know what this show's identity is. I don't think there's anything particularly unique left over. It's kind of like one of those people that gets addicted to plastic surgery and after their 50th you don't know who they are anymore. I don't want to spend the whole time shitting on it because this might be some certain person's absolute dream character. This is a person of colour. It's heavily suggested that she's a member of the LGBT. This is some representation for a large group of people, and I hope they find some positives in this, but this is a show that's really not for me.
It's not really for me either, and I would probably recommend it to like teenagers or people with teenagers who want to introduce them to sci-fi or like looking for some new sci-fi for their teens to watch that's not too grown up and graphic, I guess is the word I'm looking for. As I was watching this, I was kind of trying to see it as a graphic novel, and I can imagine that it works much better on the page than it does in live action. With the popularity of comic book movies, but particularly the superheroes in Marvel, there's a tendency of studios to just kind of throw any graphic novel onto the television screen and be like, yeah, it's going to be a success. This can totally work. But that's not always the case. Because, graphic novels is a very specific medium, and things that work on the page do not necessarily translate to live action and vice versa. And I think it takes a really skilled person to actually adapt a graphic novel into a TV show or a film so that it does work in that medium, because they have very different requirements and very different specifics. So I'm also considering the possibility that this is just a bad adaptation of what might be a very good graphic novel.
Yeah, we watched Polar on Netflix. Do you remember it had Mads Mikkelsen in as some kind of retired assassin? And again,
Yeah.
that felt like, it's very similar to what you've just said, that might have just been a bad translation. It felt like there was a story there, and it'd be interesting to actually have a read of some of the comics, but I think you're right. The people I feel sorry for, to be honest, are the loyalists that tried to help the main character at every part of this episode. And if I was one of those loyalists, I would be so disappointed in the person they've been sent to protect, because she...
Well, one of them actually said, I thought she would be cooler than this.
Yeah, that was kind of brutal, because she choked... She actually choked one of them out. She choked this kind of blue-headed woman out.
Well, to be fair, she choked her out after the blue-headed lady knocked her out and handcuffed her to a pipe.
Yeah, I just feel like that lady was... She was just like this kind of quite regal woman who just wanted to get the queen back where she deserved to be. And the fact that she was like... being choked out is not a gentle thing. You know, you don't... Oh, I don't know. This is a thumbs down for me.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion... Like I said, I sent you that text 7 minutes in, and my opinion didn't really change through the course, but it was very obvious that, like, it wasn't for me. It actually reminded me, in terms of the effects, a bit like Farscape.
Yeah.
Except, you know, like, Farscape was 20 years ago.
Yeah. It made me think of Red Dwarf, to be completely honest with you, yeah.
It's probably a good time to move on to The World According to Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, let's talk about this.
I love Jeff Goldblum. Like, I want to just give... Every time I see him, I want to just give him a hug. And I think it was the second episode, he said that he was still very much like a 4-year-old in a lot of ways. And I think that's a very accurate description of him. You know, he has this kind of wide-eyed wonder and humor looking at the world. And it's kind of an infectious way of seeing it. Like, the premise of the show is that he's investigating these very mundane objects. Like, in these 3 episodes, we did sneakers, ice cream, and tattoos. I have to admit, when I found out, when we got to the first episode and it was sneakers, I was thinking, what the fuck am I gonna, like, watch 30 minutes on sneakers for? And it was actually incredibly entertaining. Like, I laughed, I learned stuff, I was just along for the ride. And the other 2 episodes were pretty similar. Of course, I really enjoyed the tattoo episode particularly, but yeah, I would definitely watch the rest of the season.
I had very similar thoughts, but also very different thoughts. There used to be a programme on the BBC called Grumpy Old Men, and the sequel was Grumpy Old Women. It would be people kind of sitting around just giving their particular take on things. They wouldn't go out and engage with people. It was all like talking heads, like in The Office. And I kind of thought this would be more like that. I didn't appreciate that he would be actually out and about so much, engaging with people. And that was where I kind of had my problems, because I love Jeff Goldblum as well. I love looking at the world through his eyes, his sense of childlike wonder. Everything he said and everything he did, I was so engaged with. But when this show tried to be kind of like a documentary, it tried to like tiptoe its way into the documentary side of things. It kind of felt like it was trapped between 2 moments, where it was the entertainment show and it was just Jeff Goldblum, just talking about his life. I was fascinated, but when other people were speaking, I was far, far less interested. And so I think it's just slightly caught between 2 different things. It doesn't particularly scratch either itch. It's so approachable. He is a great narrator. He's a great storyteller. And I really enjoyed everything about him in it. I'm someone that possesses like 2 pairs of shoes. I don't have tattoos. I'm lactose intolerant. So these 3 episodes and their subject matter unfortunately just landed wrong for me. But I can imagine, like, when I was watching the tattoo episode, all I was thinking about was you. I was thinking about, like, I bet Lex is absolutely getting so much out of this. 2 moments I particularly enjoyed in the season. I don't know about you, but I loved the graveyard of flavours.
Yeah, that was awesome. I had no idea it existed, and now all I want to do is go there.
Absolutely, me too. I remember when we were actually at university together, I bought a Ben & Jerry's, and I can't remember what it was called, and I've been searching for it for like every year ever since. It was heavily cinnamon flavoured. I can't remember the rest of the bits that were in it, and it just went. And I bet you any money that it's in that graveyard. I need to go and I need to find out what that particular flavour is. Talking about the tattoo episode, the future of tattoos, when he met that scientist.
Like, absolutely epic. I'm really into like post-humanism and transhumanism as well, which is very much kind of in line with, you know, combining technology with the organic and this kind of idea that we're all already cyborgs in a way, because we use tools and things like that, and there's nothing in our life that isn't attached to some sort of tool. I mean, even the fact that like we walk around attached to cell phones all the time, which is like this little AI machine we carry in our pockets. So the idea that there would be like these temporary tattoos that monitor your health and your heart rate and, you know, how much sun you should get, it's so exciting.
The UV one, I would get tomorrow. To be honest, if there were a whole range of health ones, I would probably get them all. Because
you can just imagine you walking around with like all of these tattoos stuck to your body, like just...
Yeah, like I've had them on my back. I'd be like, can you just tell me like what my vitamin D is doing at the moment? And just pull my t-shirt up.
I just want to go back a minute, because you didn't like when he was kind of out and about, and I actually really enjoyed seeing him interact with people and the way he got them to kind of play with him. Particularly the guy who was doing the UV light, and he was kind of a little bit of an awkward geek type guy, but then they had this whole montage of them skipping around the park and everything. I was just thinking, like, that poor guy is so outside of his comfort zone.
I think some work better than others, but I think particularly the guy that made the shoes, I thought he came off pretty badly. The guy that reviewed the shoes, he came off a bit badly. The UV guy, when they were skipping around, it felt forced as hell. I would much have preferred a TV show where it was Jeff Goldblum, 30 minutes long, 6 5-minute segments, and he's just, for 5 minutes, he's giving his opinion on something. And he's always wearing like a different one of his crazy suits, and maybe he's playing the piano in some of them and stuff. I guess what I'm saying is I'm far more interested in hearing his voice, his opinion, his literal words coming out of his mouth than I am about anybody else. And every time somebody else spoke, I just felt like, this could be Jeff Goldblum time. Get off the screen. What are you doing?
I agree with you about the sneaker people, but I think particularly the tattoo people were very much in sync with his mindset. I think like the one tattoo artist he met, like the really old lady who'd been doing it for like 40 years or something.
Yeah.
Like she kind of matched his energy. The ice cream truck lady was kind of playing around with him as well. The people in the tattoo shop in Pittsburgh, fun fact, we share the same hometown, which I learned watching this.
Oh.
Me, Zachary Quinto, and Jeff Goldblum all share the same hometown. Not that that means anything, because it's a fairly large, but, you know, there's that. I got excited. I was like, oh, it's Pittsburgh. But yeah, I loved watching him in the tattoo shop, like dancing with fans and hugging them, and the way the tattoo guy was, like, coaching him on shading in the tattoo. The fact that this guy let him, I mean, I would totally let Jeff Goldblum tattoo me.
I have no tattoos. I would let Jeff Goldblum tattoo me.
I really enjoyed every aspect of this show. It was everything I wanted it to be and more.
Personally, I probably wouldn't watch anymore, but I think that potentially we should handpick 3 more, and either next week or the week after do this again for 3 that we've maybe chosen, because there are 9 left, aren't there? Yeah.
I mean, I think that'd probably be a good idea, because it was kind of like a roulette wheel in terms of subject matter, and it just happened to, like, I mean, I wasn't too into sneakers, but I liked moments of it. Particularly, I liked the thing that was gauging his emotions, and he was like going into actor mode and like faking out the machine. I thought that was really cool.
That was very cool, yeah.
And then, you know, the tattoo one, particularly because, like, I love the traditional method of tattooing that they do in Hawaii and also in Japan. Like, I love watching them do that, and I really, really want to have one done on me. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but, and the ice cream one happened to be things that, like, kind of keyed into my interests. Maybe, like, we have you pick out a couple that are more in line with your interests and see if you like it a bit better. Let's talk about Picard, which I've been wanting to talk about since I watched it yesterday.
I don't know how best to do this. I just wonder if I should just let you run riot and just say nothing. Can I just explain? I text Lex saying, like, get off social media, go and watch it right now. I don't want it to be spoiled for you. How did that go?
For the most part, okay, because like my response was, nah, it's fine, don't worry about it. I'm good at like being on social media and avoiding spoilers, and it doesn't really bother me that much. Blah blah blah. Next day, because I'd arranged to, I watched Picard with my mom. We used to watch Next Generation together when I was very small, and now we're watching Picard together.
We should probably say moving forward there will be full spoilers for the Picard season finale, just in case.
I'm totally gonna geek out about this.
Yeah.
So we planned to watch it on Friday, up until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon here in the UK. I was doing fine. No mention of Picard on the news feed on Twitter at all. I was messing around with like quarantine stuff, which I've been doing since we went on lockdown, or well, slightly before we went on lockdown. And then slowly, like, somebody posted a thread that I just imagined was chock full of spoilers based on what I saw of the tweet and the tag Picard. And I like scrolled quickly through, and then there was another one, and then there was another one, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? I managed to avoid it, got to the episode without anything being spoiled. Oh my fucking god, I don't think I've ever been so emotionally invested in an hour of television before in my life. Like, I was legitimately nervous going into it, and even though, like, I knew that there was going to be a season 2, but I was so terrified they were going to kill him. At one point, towards the end, I was even sitting there just, like, literally saying, please don't kill him, please don't kill him, please don't kill him. And then about halfway through, at the kind of penultimate moment when the Federation arrives, and it's fucking Riker on the lead ship, and I texted you, and I texted Jules, and was just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, still watching, but oh my god.
That text is on our Twitter feed at the moment. So.
Yeah, it is on our Twitter feed. Because I didn't want to, like, put any spoilers or anything like that, particularly since we're going to be doing the episode today, and I bitched about people putting spoilers on Twitter, but I wanted to kind of, like, encapsulate my feelings about the episode, so I was just like, this tweet says it all. There was so much. I mean, it was pretty much everything I wanted to have happen, and pretty much everything I said would happen. There was the kind of heartbreaking moment when Picard's organic body died and they fixed him. The grieving scenes were incredibly touching and poignant, I thought, and also, like, they gave you, there was two very different approaches to grief. You had Seven and Rios, who were kind of stoic and drinking their sorrows and letting a little bit of their hard shells slip by, and then you had Eleanor and Rafi, who just kind of dissolved into tears. Meanwhile, you have this butterfly just kind of floating around. The moment when Data asked Picard to kill him, I just, like, it broke my heart. It was like, he's got to kill his best friend, and yeah, I understand the logic behind it and everything, and it's a really good thing, but, like, how do you kill your best friend? Every one of these people was some kind of loner outcast who was isolated from the people around them and the environment around them. They didn't really fit in anywhere. I mean, there were a lot of themes in this season, and I kind of inundated Jules with a very long text about everything this season was about a while back, and maybe one day I'll post that on Twitter, maybe not. But one of the kind of central themes of this season was about these people finding each other and finding a family in each other and allowing each other in and accepting the kind of exceptionality that each one of them possessed. And it was about Picard coming back to life and rediscovering his purpose. I mean, there were so many, not in this episode in particular, but although when he flew the ship, like, that I loved that bit. But a few episodes ago, there was, like, when he was standing, when everybody else was asleep, and he was standing on the bridge just kind of looking out and talking about how when he was an ensign, his first night shift on the Stargazer, and his face as he was talking about this still reflected that kind of wonder at the expanse of space, and it really let you know that, like, this is a person who is meant to be out there exploring and investigating the universe, and there's nothing he wants more than that. This was the perfect season finale to this show. Yeah, it really was everything I wanted it to be, and I'm guessing by the way they set up the kind of final scene that next season will be a little bit more in line with what you were looking for out of Picard, in that they'll be kind of going on adventures and exploring the universe, and it'll possibly be a little bit less introspective and more Next Generation-y.
One quick question. Do you think that Raffi and Seven of Nine are getting together? Because that's all the internet's talking about after they were seen.
Absolutely. And I'm so on board with that. Like, way to go, Seven.
I think the 2-part finale, last week and this week, every second that took place on Soji's planet, I think was kind of mediocre. This final episode, episode 10, rather than suspension of disbelief, I think it kind of wanted you to just leave your brain at the door for a lot of the storytelling parts. I don't really believe that he and Jurati could have got to the ship unseen. I didn't really believe that he could pilot the ship. I didn't believe that they would welcome Narek back in and kind of see Soji as almost like the enemy so quickly. I didn't really believe Sung's change of heart. It was more examples of really convenient storytelling. But I think it's very brave to double down on going for the nostalgia angle rather than giving sci-fi fans a sci-fi show where there isn't any semblance of kind of conflict or battles. And I think it could be alienating to a lot of the Star Trek fans, and it seems to be, reading some of the reviews, but I just think it's super brave, and I think the people who make this show ultimately know exactly who their audience is. And so they've decided that, yeah, it's sentiment, it's nostalgia, it's Jean-Luc Picard, it's not about battles, it's not about solving things with your fists or with your phasers, it's about negotiation, it's about diplomacy. We're just about to have this huge battle with hundreds of ships, and we get this 5-minute speech of him to Soji basically saying, close the portal, I'll offer you my life, close communication. And so him being a diplomat, being a speech maker is what saved the day rather than a big space battle. And that is the season. That's what this season is about. And I can respect that and understand that. But it, as I said again last week, I've said it most weeks, it makes for a very slow, ponderous type of story. And that will alienate a lot of people, including myself. But yeah, good luck and God bless. They've made a show for Picard fans, and the thrill that you have clearly got from this episode and this season in general, I can be happy to just sit here and saying, this one just wasn't for me. But I'm very glad that it was for you, and I'm very glad that it's connected with a lot of, Next Generation and particularly Picard fans.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's absolutely amazing. And yeah, it's not your standard sci-fi show. I think it is very specifically for fans of Picard, the character Picard, and specific things about him, like the speech making. It's so quintessentially Jean-Luc Picard that every single piece of this show, of this whole season, has been so. It has its issues. It's not a perfect season. Some of the pacing's been off. Some of the character development has been a little bit rocky. There've been some big exposition dumps. A few things have been rushed here and there. I agree with you. When we were watching it, I literally asked out loud, how the fuck did they get to the ship so fast? Still have a little bit of problem that everybody just forgave Girardi so quickly for killing Bruce Maddox, but that's a side point. But so much of the show, from the opening credits, the theme song, to the lighting, the focus on Jean-Luc, the interactions with other characters, that it was still really fulfilling to watch and still really rewarding to watch as someone who just absolutely loves this character and this actor to pieces. If you watch Next Generation for Jean-Luc Picard, you should definitely watch this show and definitely tune in for next season.
I think at the beginning of the season we talked about how this show ultimately ends. And I think my thoughts were that not this season, but the whole show will end with his death. And I wonder now, two things. If he died again, would that carry any kind of weight or any kind of meaning? Because much like Oliver Queen, who dies every other week, we got a bit sick of the constant fake outs. Secondly, does this now mean that he will end up either, some kind of higher up in Starfleet or back at Chateau Picard or wherever he was living? Or is that the name of his wine, Chateau Picard?
Yeah.
Yeah, or living back wherever he was living.
Okay, so two things. I don't think they're not going to kill him as much as Oliver Queen. The next time he dies will be the time he dies, and that's going to be it for the character, which means it's going to be very, very sad. In all likelihood, the next time he dies will probably also either be the retirement of Patrick Stewart or the death of Patrick Stewart. So it's going to be kind of a double whammy, saying goodbye to Jean-Luc Picard and saying goodbye to Patrick Stewart at the same time. The second question, he's not going to go back to Starfleet. He is the admiral of this ship, but they are kind of going off and doing their own thing. They're a bunch of former Starfleet renegade people who don't really fit into the establishment anymore. They're just kind of going to go off through the universe and right the wrongs that they come across.
Fair enough. Any final thoughts?
Go watch Picard. It's free, and for the Americans out there, I know I was giving you shit, but CBS, because of isolation and everything, it is free to watch a bunch of their streaming stuff, including every episode of Picard. So go take advantage of that when you're sitting at home not doing anything.
That's it for this week. We'll be back on Tuesday with more Westworld and Westworld the film as well. And we'll be back this time next week with our second Q&A episode.
We've got some good questions. If you have a burning question, tweet it to us at Geek Nerd Pod. DM us, tweet, tag us, whatever. We're still taking questions up until next Saturday, so you have another week to get your questions in. And we've already got probably 6 or 7 really kind of interesting questions. We're gonna have to think about these. We'll see you on Tuesday.
See you next week. Bye.